whole kit to boot right here, man.
Damn, it looks live. Green stream.
Live stream.
Let's see what we got here. Let me look over here. It says receiving your content.
That's good. That's good.
That's a start, right? You're live.
I see some girl on here right now.
You're live, and
Boom.
Look at that. I can actually see us on there.
Holy cow,
Look
man.
at that.
That's a good look. I can't get distracted by that.
And it just like that.
Right here.
I don't even know what
just like that. Here we are.
It's like that, and we're online.
Boom.
Oh,
I like it.
Man, I don't even know.
Boom.
I don't even know what to expect.
You know what? It looks pretty darn good, though, I have to say, Jeff.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I like that background you have there. Praxis Media Group is jumping in.
Look at that.
We have Mike check the reverb. That's weird. I don't hear reverb.
Trying to pop the chat.
Are you maybe feeding through some of the? Hey, XRP, what's up, man? My man. You were awesome the other night in the zoo. Loved that. It's good seeing your face, because I always see. We always hear you, but we never see you. And you got a good-looking face, man. I think we should see more of you, to be honest. Jay Vaught is on here? What? Jay, I'm so happy you made it, man. So happy to see Jay Vaught.
There we go.
Real name.
I'm catching up now. There we go. Mama Lacey. Hey, there's Brian Dark.
Yeah, Brian Dark is the man.
As long as you pronounce his last name properly, that's a good thing.
Jay Vaught. I know Jay's real name. I'm not gonna. Hey, Rain is here. Rain and I were just talking a few minutes ago.
Oh, there's Rain. Nice.
Oh, wait a minute. So you're hearing reverb on my side?
Too much reverb?
Echo on chip.
Echo on chip.
Echo. What do you mean? I don't see I don't sound like echo. Are you saying there's echo? What are you talking
where the
about?
echo might be.
Horrible echo, man. That's
horrible
echo.
Good.
We tried this.
Oh man, look at now.
That's not what we were going for, Jeff.
But I like the echo.
What do you mean?
All right, let me see. Let me see what I got to cut out here. If I cut out chip, then I'm probably gonna kill your voice. Let me see. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's too loud. Turn it down.
Yeah, cut it down a little bit. Still, is there something feeding back into it? That's what I'm wondering. So I'm just on my phone. I don't know what it might be. Usually echo would be caused by.
That'd be on my side if I'm double feeding feeding it in, but I'm pulling your stream, and it looks like desktop audio.
Yeah, but you don't have headset on, so I think if you don't have
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
You're hearing me.
Oh, you know what? That's what it is. You know what? I need to get a headset.
I told you Jeff was smarter than I look. That's what I tell you.
Man, everything was almost perfect.
It is perfect. Listen, I'm on the whole report. Could there be anything more perfect than that?
That's right. You better believe it. Look at that. And we pulled it off too. All right.
Yeah.
Let me go search for a headset.
By the way, guys, this is not a sponsorship. I tell you that I'm drinking some of this tea right here from South Korea that my wife picked up. It's just spectacular. I have to tell you. Look at this. I mean, this tea bag is just so cool looking. Look at this. Check out that retroness, people. Look at that tea bag. Just a lot of goodness. Weird. I woke up today with a little bit of sort of a scratchy throat. You get a little bit of a scratchy throat, and it's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, Ray, you're right. Streaming is not breezy. Easy. It's never like that. Everything is good until you go live.
All right.
Is everything good?
Let's see what we got here. Let me see if I can figure this out.
Jeff is gone. He's gone.
I came back. I'm back.
All right. Jeff's back.
So I have no idea where to plug this thing in.
We're gonna get this solved. I think it's the you know I'll tell you guys, doing the single stream, you don't really have to wear the headset. You don't need to hear yourself, right? But when you do it with somebody else, I think this may solve the problem.
Can you guys still hear Chip?
Yeah, I'm crazy though.
Still echoing?
That bad boy in.
I plugged in my headset.
Greg G says he looks like he's watching a Pink Floyd video. Greg, you are watching a Pink Floyd video, man.
Hey, that's what we're trying to pull off too. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the child has grown, the dream is gone. That's my favorite line of all time, because you have to get to be an older age to understand what they meant. When you're a kid, you're like, that's cool.
Still echoing.
You're like, am I still echoing?
I don't even know how that's possible. You know what? Let me probably monitor it over here too. I gotta cut something down.
I'm gonna ignore you just said that, Jay, but Jay is being
very
funny.
bad. Who can we cut down? What if I cut down the desktop audio? Say something?
Hello. Is it still echoing, guys? Try it now. Let us know. Give us some feedback. Yeah, don't have anything coming out of your echo. I mean, out of your better. Okay, so you're just
Oh,
hearing
that's
me.
better.
Yeah, so it sounds
All
like
right,
you're
so let
probably
me
just
kill the
feeding back.
desktop audio altogether. How about now?
Yeah, man.
I don't know
Yeah,
why.
it's good.
I'm using OBS to control these audio things.
Yeah, but if you're feeding it back, okay, it seems like it's good now.
Oh,
Okay.
that's what it
All right,
was.
man.
Look at that, man. It was a secret.
So look, if you
Crazy.
just do the intro from here, you can always edit the video from right here and cut all this goofiness out of it.
So let's just pretend we just started.
Okay, ready?
So,
Go ahead. I'm gonna pretend like I'm just sitting here.
all right. And now, welcome to the HODL Report with the XRP Minute. How do you like that?
Hey,
Was that pretty good?
sounded pretty good to me. I actually loved it personally, but now I'm thinking to myself, I got to tweet this bad boy out. What am I doing sitting around?
I don't know.
All right, Scott says it's perfect, and Scott's word is golden. So Mama Lacey's laughing at something, probably something somebody said. It might have been rain. Desktop audio is the problem.
Probably just laughing at us.
Probably, yeah.
That's
So,
okay. A little.
by the way, what's that shirt you have on today?
And this is in Cobra Kai.
Yeah, the Cobra Kai, man.
Oh yeah, Cobra Kai.
Is it worth watching? Because I always get the ads on YouTube, and I'm tempted to always do it. I mean, should I watch it?
You
Or
got to
should I
watch
be
it.
good,
You got to
or?
go back to season 1. It was actually really good. I was shocked. I watched episode 1 of season 2 last night, and it was actually pretty solid.
Nice. Thanks, Rain, for tweeting that out. Much appreciated. Yeah, I'm gonna tweet this out too.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, you always have cool shirts. I have like plain Jane shirts, but that's a cool. You always have these interesting, fun,
And
cool
if you
t-shirts.
notice, you can actually see through the Cobra Kai because it's kind of cool.
Oh wow.
Get like the different
nice.
reflection of the sunset behind me.
Alex Yeet is in here. Alex, are you the same guy that's been making all the? You've been making some. What do you call it? Avatars? What do we call those things? Like logos for people? Have I seen a couple of those? Rained in the house. Oh, look at this. He's being clever. Hey, Dansky's in here.
Hey, see that, Chip? We were just talking about live max headroom, and 179 brought that up. Unless I missed that part and you already knew when I was.
No, I didn't see that, but we really got to bring back that max headroom thing, man. Max headroom. And all that weird stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alex, you've been making some logos. I think I saw Boo Boos, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm Max.
Awesome.
Yeah, I made some new logos. Yeah, man. GXRP, right on. Yeah, you've been busy little camper out there.
Yeah. So, hey, you know what? Today is, hang on, I wrote down a few things to talk about today, if you can believe that.
I do, man. You're always prepared. Of course I believe it.
All right. So here's something interesting. I've been talking about the FedWire. I never knew about the FedWire, but we talk a lot about SWIFT, and the Federal Reserve runs the FedWire, and it has been for quite a long time. I didn't realize the Federal Reserve was doing currency exchanges or transfers since the 1800s via telegraph, which is pretty interesting. So then FedWire actually in 2016 was the latest data I found. They actually completed 150 million transactions valued at about $770 trillion.
What?
Yeah, in cross-border transactions.
Holy,
how crazy is that?
That's insane. Did you say 700 trillion?
770 trillion.
We're getting excited about when we hear numbers in the billions, right? It's hard. That's a crazy number, man.
Yeah, So
700. Are you sure that's the right number, Jeff?
It was a little bit lower, like 700.
I'm like, that's a lot. I mean, the U.S. debt is at 21 trillion, I believe, right?
Yep.
21 trillion and running up. So
yeah, the exact number was 766, but that was in 2016, so it was like 3 years ago. So I took some liberty and I rounded up. Sounded better.
Yeah. Wow.
No, but
you rounded up $680 trillion. It was awesome. Perfect. You add a few zeros. I like to do that. I'm good at adding zeros. That's my favorite thing in life to do.
That was really 766 trillion. I rounded up by 4 trillion.
It doesn't matter. That's
sick,
just
right?
mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, actually. You think about that. I mean, how is it even possible to send that kind of? Well, I guess it is. That was kind of transactions.
Yeah. So the Fedwire is actually doing all the large kind of imminent type transactions. That's unbelievable. And there's a lot more to it. I'm starting to dig into the Fedwire a little bit. But then they use another organization. Obviously, the Federal Reserve, as we know, isn't a government organization, and it's a conglomerate of wealthy families that started the Fed. And you have another organization called CHIPS, which is another private entity, which they're both involved in the settlement process. So you think about where Ripple is with RippleNet. Once they put XRP goes live, the possibilities out there are truly endless, because we're focused so much and hyper focused on SWIFT, but really there's a lot more than SWIFT when we're talking about cross-border payment.
Yeah, I'm trying to still get my head wrapped around that number, man. It's incredible. I mean, if you thought about, I mean, just think, for example, like what kind of liquidity would you need? I mean, that's a sick. It's to be able to provide that kind of throughput. Now, was that a to date? Was that like a year to date? In other words, was that number from 1 year?
That was 1 year. That was 2016.
So, gosh, you got to imagine that present day is going to probably your numbers reached, and we're like at 2018 of last year.
Yeah, so that's something I got to look back and look up 18 and see where we're at. But I mean, those numbers are phenomenal. And so really one of the things that I was focused in on, today, and this morning I was listening to a stream or a video, and I can't remember whose it was, but he was talking about IOTA. I don't know if you guys saw it. And so he's talking about IOTA being adopted by Jaguar, and Jaguar Land Rover potentially, utilizing the IOTA solution for different everyday things while you're driving, whether it's tolls or whatever it might be. And it really, you start thinking about utility. And the last stream that I had, I talked about how the CEO of Coinbase, one of his statements was that we're moving out of investment to utility. So 2019 is really the beginning of utility, and so I think we're starting to see, some of that utility kicking in when when you start seeing IOTA starting to make some progress, and you see automotive companies testing it out. And we've heard about it throughout the past year or so. We've heard about auto companies, starting to integrate. And then what is it? BMW is integrating with VeChain, I think.
Yeah, VeChain. I'm really impressed with what's happening with VeChain lately. I mean, it's they've been really kind of pumping the partnerships lately, and it's been pretty consistent news coming out of that camp, and it's still a relatively good buy. There's again, Jeff, when you talk about utility, I have to say that I was actually having a conversation with the BTC Maxi that I I reference him a lot, but he's really the guy I have a lot of respect for because he got me into it. And he is, I wouldn't say he's warmed up to XRP. Let's not get crazy. Let's not go crazy. He's a maxi. But one of the things that he was pretty excited about when I told how fast you can move, how you can convert something, let's say his Bitcoin. Because part of the problem is even on the Lightning Network, right? They have some issues with moving it. And essentially the Lightning, what do they call it? What is it called? The Lightning Network, the Lightning... It's pretty much a hack written over top of something. It's really made for the shortfall that's associated with Bitcoin and moving it quickly. And Sean Schaefer was the guy that saw that right up front when they were trying to do the Lightning torch, and when they were starting to pass around, they just ran out of because they need the what do you call it, crypto on both sides to offset it. It just ran out of funds and just died a miserable death. So. It's again, you can get excited about Lightning, but really, XRP has that built in. It's a lot easier to engineer from the ground up than to go back later. So it's interesting the way the whole world's sort of working here.
Yeah. I just noticed DNI DNI's in the room. DNI, man, you had a great stream tonight. You're still in here. I think you're doing a phenomenal job, you know, considering you're going on to, you're in week 5 now, going into week 6. Absolutely outstanding. But I just wanted to point out, I think we have a new name for the Monday night stream. It's the XRP Power Hour.
There you go. I like it. XRP Power Hour. Or I like what you have on there too, the XRP Happy Hour.
Happy Hour, which is good too.
What I would need some adult beverages, which I don't have because of the scratchy throat. I'm drinking the Korean, tea tonight. So
that's close, pretty close to it. So all right, let's see who else do we have in the chat here that jumped in. Got Matt Richter came in. I know we talked about a lot of you. You mentioned a lot of everyone else that was in here. Ed Arias. All right.
So I'm wondering what he's saying there. 100 isn't. It'll be 20 years, and it depends on your financial goals. Not sure what that's a reference to.
See, there we go. I think these might have been on hold or something. All right. So while we're doing that, so check this out. So we just we look at the utility with cars. But this is another article that just came out, and it also has to do with cars. Let me see if I can find it. See, here we go. So this came out of the University of Nevada. So I think utility, if we really focus in on utility, I would like to see, there's obviously a lot of utility with XRP in the payment space, and we're starting to see that develop. But I like looking at when we see mainstream adoption of potential utility, and we're starting to see it at the university level here. So University of Nevada, Reno develops driverless vehicle blockchain tech with IoT firm. I think that's kind of cool too. So this actually was came out on the 23rd on Cointelegraph, and this is an autonomous vehicle project. So and they're going to use let me see, it doesn't say. I didn't find. It's not here. I don't know which one they're going to be using, but here it says that IBM. No, oh, wait a minute. So it said this is interesting. So previously, global tech giant IBM acquired a blockchain patent on new development to manage data and interactions for self-driving vehicles. So obviously, and then we have Hyundai is getting in on it. There's so many organizations that are getting in on the car side, the everyday interaction. So I think when we get into that autonomy of when you're using AI, or if you have machinery that's going to be communicating with each other, I think that's an amazing utility, and how you really can't have self-driving cars without that acknowledgement of interaction between the self-driving cars. So having, being able to do that on the blockchain, I think is pretty important.
It is, but one thing I will comment, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, but I will say that, when it comes to this autonomous cars and everything, it sounds great on the onset, right? Yeah, I mean, it's great. I'll be on my car, I'll be on my phone, sending emails, doing whatever. But me, I'm a big freedom guy, freedom from being tracked on the internet, all that. I talk about that a lot. But one of the things I think I find a little disconcerting is that once there's I would say the municipalities or governments at large start tapping into, because I have this favorite route that I like to go in the morning. I did a video earlier about Starbucks coffee, right? So that's just the route that I like to go. Maybe it's not as fast, but it's just the one that I prefer. So what I'm concerned about is on this autonomous vehicles where they're self-driving, they're going to take you there at some point. I believe like city planning will get involved, and they're going to map out the best route for me. They're going to say like, hey, yeah, Chip, I know you like that route. We're going to take you down this back route because we're going to do some traffic control. We'll get you there at a certain time or roughly around the same time. So I kind of feel like in some sense, I don't want to go crazy town, but I sort of feel like it's a freedom grab to a sense, right? Because it depends on who's choosing for me. Now, if I'm choosing for myself, want to program my own route, okay, fair enough. But I wonder about it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Jeff, and it'd be funny. I'd be curious what some of the people in the chat feel about it. Am I going crazy? I mean, am I off base here? Because I sort of feel like regulation comes in and, we got to figure out the best way to control traffic. What am I going wrong here? Am I off base?
No, that's a good point, you know, and and I thought about that a lot as well. I don't even like red light cameras, you know, so
I don't
I
either.
think that's a major issue. Um, but at the same time, with any type of technology, I think there has to be some sort of understanding. You know, again, you know, we regulate the government, you know, at the level of the people. You know, so if we allow ourselves to become pushovers and allow technology to be taken over by the powers that be at the government level, to where they're going to start tracking us or telling us which way we should go, you know, that becomes problematic. If it's the ebb and flow of traffic, that, you know, that might be a different story, because I believe, you know, once we get into the autonomous vehicles, you know, then, you know, you can alleviate a lot of the traffic issues, you know, because you're not going to have all the, you know, the pumping the brakes, you're not going to have the gawkers, and you're going to have the lane transitions a lot more kind of symmetrical, I guess, you know, common speeds. Now the question is inner city driving, you know, so let's say, you know, are we going to be connected to a Waze that brings you through the worst part of town? Yeah, because that's the shortest route. You know,
Right.
probably isn't the smartest way to go. You know, so we're gonna have to maintain some semblance of control, or maybe the autonomous driving in the passenger vehicle shouldn't happen in the city, but maybe only on the freeway. You know, you get onto
Yeah.
I
So I
ninety
wanted.
five and that's it. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's always dangerous at any given. So I wanted to say mention something that Auburn Rain brought up here, saying that you know, becomes everything becomes smart. The hacking which can occur is huge, and that's why everything needs to be on the blockchain to protect the system. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. But you know, it's kind of like when you let the monster out of the box, it's pretty much out of the box. You can't put it back in. So that's why we're all talking about regulation right now with cryptocurrencies. So there's going to be, so if legislation does pass, Jeff, right? So what if you were to say, like, what's the over under on the percentage that you like? In other words, is it going to be 80% range? Because let's face it, there's probably going to be some stuff that as a community we may not agree with, right? We may not just absolutely love what's happening, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me pause on that a second. Jungle just came into the room. Jungle, what's up, man? And
Jungo,
AJ, he just gave us $10 with a CA in front of it. I totally
it's
appreciate that.
Canadian,
That's
baby.
awesome. What's Canadian worth nowadays? Is that
$1.76, I think.
nice?
That's for $10. I'm sorry. No, it's actually more. It's more than that.
It's like
It's
half,
96
right? So
cents.
it's like $5
Well, you know,
US.
I grew up close to the Canadian
Kidding,
border. I grew
AJ.
up in
That's
Niagara
awesome,
Falls.
man. Totally
I grew up in
appreciate it.
Niagara Falls, New York, you know,
Huh?
and we used to laugh about it. There was a time when it was like $1.26, and it was like their currency was really high, you know, and it was like, and then there were times where it dipped. So it's been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony Jackson, thank you,
No,
man.
that's awesome. Totally appreciate it. You know, I think it's funny when I was living in Detroit. You know, we used to joke about it all the time because we'd go over to Windsor all the time to hang out, and it was nice
Mm-hmm.
because you go to Windsor and it was like you get 2 for 1 every time you went to Canada. It was
Right
because, you
on,
know,
right
the
on.
exchange was like 60% or whatever it was. I don't know what.
What year did you live in? Because I lived in Detroit for 4 years. I worked at the GM Tech
Oh,
Center
no
there.
way. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, weird.
That is
It's
crazy.
weird. We talk all the time, and I never talked about this with you.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. I was there until '05.
Okay, I was there much earlier, but yeah, mine was like early '90s. So
Early until what year?
let's see, '89 until '93, and then '93 I moved back to
Oh,
Florida.
no way. I moved there in '94.
How about that?
Yeah.
Look at that, huh?
Look at that
There you
crossover.
go.
And you know, DNI's from the Detroit area.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about that. I know he.
Uh,
It's kind of cool. So there is a Detroit connection here, man.
that's
It's
right.
pretty
Yeah.
interesting. The Motown connection. I gotta
Motown.
say, the city's really cool. You know, sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I have to tell you, man, it's a good city, great food. You know, downtown area is getting revitalized. They're putting a lot of money into it, so I'm really happy to see that happening. There's a couple good books out there called Detroit, and they're photos of all the abandoned buildings and stuff. It's basically will crush you looking at it, but just to know the kind of beauty that once was, and it wasn't too long ago. We're talking 70, 80 years ago. It's not forever ago. And there's also somebody that I follow on Instagram that just goes in these abandoned buildings and towns and
Yeah.
snaps all these pictures up. And it's just, but I'm glad they're rebuilding it because that town is very cool. I have a big good place in my heart for that town. I love Detroit. Obviously, the suburbs are cool. I lived in Troy. I lived in Rochester. I lived in Rochester Hills. So.
Nice. Yeah, I was in Royal Oak area.
Royal Oak is great, man. Nice and trendy.
Yeah,
cool.
And it was a lot different back in the early '90s. Yeah, it's definitely expanded. But back in the early '90s, Detroit had a warehouse district. We used to go down there. They had after-hours clubs, and there was one place, if you like Irish pubs, they had the Old Shillelagh. And I don't know if you ever went there. Maybe D&I remembers the Old Shillelagh. But that was the place to go. You like Irish music and drinking, best.
Yeah, I don't remember that one per se. Now, for some reason, I don't necessarily remember that one. But no, it was a cool city, man. I mean, but by the same token, I remember the first day I moved there. I was driving to the office. It took me 2 hours to get there, and it was a giant snowstorm. And I was like, man, last week I lived in Florida. What the hell was I thinking? What kind of craziness got into me? Where did my mind go?
Right.
And when I finally got there, some guy opening the door, trying to keep the door open and the snow from blowing in. He was waving people off like, we're closed.
Right.
And as I'm driving home another 2 hours back, I'm like, it sounded like a good idea at the time. Yeah. It really sounded like a good idea at the time. It just didn't materialize.
Right. It's a little crazy, right? You come from Florida to Detroit.
Yeah, Mexican Village.
Man,
Mexican
Las
Village,
Brisas. There was a restaurant there called Las Brisas.
So Greek Town? Yeah. What was some of the Opa? Man, I love some cool places in Greek Town. Opa. First time they did that, it freaked me out, man. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Right. Yeah, I definitely. Brian Darcy said I love the Irish pubs, man. I've been in an Irish pub in almost every country I've been to. I haven't found the Irish pub I wasn't in New Delhi. I was in it wasn't Ahmedabad. I forget where I was. And we went there was a mall over there, and I had to I'm always on the hunt for an Irish pub, and I found one in India. Found one in South Korea, too. That was pretty good.
I visited a few Irish pubs in Ireland. It was kind of weird. It's like you're in a normal pub, but you're in Ireland, And I also was, I was in Northern Ireland as well. It's really weird going to Northern Ireland. You cross over. It's almost like you're going into another country. They got this big sort of like barrier, and then you kind of go through. And it's funny because my mobile service actually switched over. I went from when I was in Ireland, but you go to Northern Ireland, and all of a sudden the phone flipped over to a different service. I was like, that's just weird how it just went through the like a checkpoint almost. It's kind of an odd thing. And I went to this this event that was like in an old warehouse where they had built part of the Titanic, and also I didn't know it at the time, because at the time I was not a Game of Thrones crazy person the way I am, because I'm just I never watched it. But they had the Iron Throne there. They also had some of the tables from a couple of they were just set pieces that they had. But I did some of the tables that they used from Walter Frey when they were eating Red Wedding and all that stuff that I was eating at. And when I saw that, I was like, I was eating on those tables. When I finally saw it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. It was just like old wooden tables. Who cares,
Right.
But I have to say, it was my goal to visit, all four quarters of the UK, Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and what am I leaving out?
Wales.
Yeah. Wales is crazy. I don't know. So I drove the Wales coastline, and there's one city that's about 30 some characters, and the locals hate. You're like, can you pronounce that? And they're like,
Right.
And they're like, okay, dude, this is like the 4 billionth time I did it. It was fun the first 1 million times, but no, it's not that great.
Right.
But I do have a good story about that. I mean, we did stop at a bed and breakfast. I was with some friends, and it was kind of weird. It's kind of eerie. It's like one of these towns, if you pass by, you're basically out of the town, and if you're going 70 miles an hour. But when you go to this bed and breakfast, so on the base floor, there's a pub. And then you go upstairs where like the bed and breakfast are. There's like 7 or 8 rooms up there. And it was across from a cemetery. So I was like, this is kind of a weird thing, man. I'm like, it was a cool church across the street with a cemetery, and it's like, it just seemed very close proximity wise to the place. And, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a weird story, but man, let's just say there were spirits.
It's eerie.
Abound in that place.
Right.
And, it was a freaky sort of a place. I had to change my room.
Yep. That's eerie.
Of course, I was with some English people, and they were banging on the rooms. The funny thing, we hadn't even started drinking yet, right? That was what's weird. People go like, were you drinking? I'm like, no, I wasn't drinking. So the guy says, hey, I'm going to run upstairs. You mind if I leave the door cracked a little bit? Because I need to run through. Sorry, but that's where the washer is. And I got to pull some clothes. And I'm like, look, I'm going to take a nap. I don't care. So I felt like I couldn't sleep. I felt something was weird going on. And I was like, I turned over, I looked in the corner, and I freaked out because I saw this figure. It looked like almost like a child or a smaller figure. I wasn't freaked out as much as I was pissed off because I really wanted to sleep, and I felt like I was like somebody was staring at me. And then I rolled over the other way. And when I rolled over the other way, boom, it was in the other corner. I'm like, okay, it's time to go. Daylight, wide awake, something's not happening right. I'm not feeling this thing. So I switched my room.
Oh yeah.
So I go into and I go, hey, do you have another room that's ready? And they're like, yeah, we have one. We have a great room, and it's a 4-banister bed. And it has a really great view. So, and meanwhile, my friends are sleeping. I go to this room and I open up the curtains, and now I'm staring at the cemetery. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be some kind of night here, man. I mean, and I was with some English people, and as you know, they don't really care for English people too much. Right. And as an American, if you're loved more than English, you got something great going on, right? So I was buying drinks. We're laughing. They're over the corner. I'm like, look, they're English, but just bring them over here. Let's drink together and be merry. And like, oh, the English. I could not believe how they treated them, through our journey, like just the hostility and they would let it. We went to a club and they said, oh, we're closed. I'm like, well, what do you mean? They go, are you American, right? Yeah. Okay, how about your friends? And they're like, well, we're English. They go, you can come in. They can't. I was like, what kind of place is this? That's brutal. Man? Yeah. That's how it is. Anyway, side story. That's what happens on a live stream.
Hey, Brian said that you were drunk.
I was drunk later, and I got behind the bar, and I don't know if you know the hand pours. When you pull they're not carbonated at all, and it's kind of flat. But you know how like you feel like you need one more drink. Like so, we're drinking all night. At the time the pubs closed at 11. We go, and they said we close all the doors and windows, and we're closed. We drink till 2 a.m. Place shuts down. It's dark, and I'm sitting in my room thinking, you know what? It'd be kind of cool if I just moseyed on downstairs and poured myself a beer. So I poured myself a beer, big old hand pull, and found a bottle, and and I took it upstairs. And when I walked upstairs, the original room was all the way down the hallway, and now I noticed that the door is open. So I run in my room, close the door, put the beer down, and I wake up the next morning with a full glass of beer.
Oh man, that's just brutal.
What are you gonna do, man? It was like one of these.
It's terrifying. Those places always terrify me. We stayed at a place in England called the Old Lockup, and that's exactly what it was. And there was a cemetery right behind it also, and that was.
Were there weird goings on as well?
Not that I was. No, I don't. Not in that one. Other than it was perfectly fine. I have to say I haven't really had any. Other than you get those weird feelings sometimes, and that was about it. I haven't seen anything quite so crazy.
I'll tell you what, when I tell the story now, I'm way more freaked out. At the time, it just was annoying, right? I was kind of annoyed by it. But now that I tell this story, I'm like, man, how did I not run out of that place? I didn't feel like it was a bad spirit. It might have been a child or something.
Right.
But it was just staring at me, man. And I didn't like that. It freaked me out too much.
That's
so I was
crazy.
Just like, so what else is on your agenda?
You know what they need is a blockchain to track the spirits, and then you'd be all set.
Right, that would be really transparent. Get it? Transparent.
Oh, you like that? All right. No, I don't remember how we ended up down that path. You asked a question, and then that was the end of that.
I don't know.
But that Starbucks that you were at, what's up with that drive-through? What?
Well, listen, So I wish I could take the drive-through over here in Boca Raton because that one was That was in Coral Springs, actually. That's actually a brand new one that opened. The funny thing is that the inside part of it was actually different than I just shot that on another day. But the one that's by me, I'm telling you, sometimes I will count 17, 18 cars. They will wait in a line for 25 minutes in a car. That's how lazy we've become as Americans, man. And so I always walk past the people and, I just get my stuff. And you always get that dirty look. Like I've been sitting here waiting patiently and some guy just walks in, grabs his stuff. Hey, how you doing? Hi, nice day. Ever heard of XRP? Take care.
Move along.
Move along. Get out.
Hey, we've got Ali G's in. We got a couple of people came in since we've been talking about ghosts and haunted castles.
That wasn't on the agenda, by the way. Jeff didn't have that.
No, yeah, I didn't see it. I was been looking through all the pages, and it's definitely not there on the script.
Thank you, Allie. Let's not get in. Bad time to bring that up, Allie. Allie's bringing up age, dude. We're not going to talk about that on this stream. I think we're going to avoid that at all costs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what happens here. Yeah. See what happens. I'm going back up here, and I'm trying to figure out. DNI said something about the Windsor Ballet.
Oh, let's see that.
But I don't know what that is. All right. Keep going back up here. There was something else here. Back.
I see Anthony Jackson is like as being funny.
Huh. See here. All right. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what you asked, and I said I'll answer it, and I can't remember. It was really a good question too. But anyhow, so check this out. So did you see there was another article that just came out here I thought was interesting, and Craig Wright seems to keep popping up in the news. Now that guy's in. Of course, now the article's not here. At least the stream's working.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But my tabs aren't open.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Ah, crap. So Craig Wright's over here, and he's giving the finger to, basically, giving the finger to the CEO of Binance.
Oh, come on, man.
He said here, hang on. He said Craig Wright dubs Binance a money laundering bucket shop. Calls John McAfee a con man.
Yeah, well, you know what? Guess what? I have a lot more. I love John, man. He's the rebel of all rebels. He doesn't give a crap about anybody. And you love him or hate him, man. I absolutely love him. I have for a long time, and he's a good dude, man. He's funny. Hey, but Jeff, listen to this. I just pulled this article up. Tell me what you think about this. So let's just pop. Jaguar Land Rover plans to give drivers crypto in return for their data. This is off of CoinDesk. It says that Jaguar Land Rover may soon let drivers earn rewards in cryptocurrency for sharing their data. But you know what? It's not a sparse stretch, right? Because Google says like, hey, man, you want a free email address? You get a Gmail address, but they're not as open about it. Meanwhile, they're keyword targeting you. You just talk about something. The next thing you know, you send an email about something, next thing you know, you're targeted. So it says they're currently trialing blockchain technology and allow our users to enable their cars to automatically report road condition data such as traffic congestion to navigation providers or local authorities. And in turn, they'll receive IOTA tokens. The initiative comes via partnership. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I
right?
didn't see that part of the article.
I didn't realize it was data.
I didn't see that part.
I didn't realize it was. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't realize it was data connected, which.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's.
So wait.
Yeah, so that is.
So what data?
The
data
story.
tracking? In terms of they're going to track where you go, track your movements.
Well, yes and no, but it sounds like you have to. Well, the way it's written here, it looks like you have to report it. Automatically report road conditions. So yeah, I mean, so if you're using Google Maps, they do it without even asking you. But you're given consent by using their app. So you never notice where they can find out where the traffic congestion is. You're on Google.
Right. Oh yeah.
You're on Google Maps.
And Waze,
also
yeah.
You see the reds.
Yep.
Or Waze.
One
right?
or the
But
other.
that's you're opting into that. It's just not as open and transparent as you would think it would be. It's just like, yeah, man. But for the free stuff, it's like, hey, but I mean, does it make sense to get maybe IOTA instead? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I didn't realize it was connected to data. I thought they were doing something cool, but not to say that it's not cool. It just sounds to me like, the same thing about how much privacy are they willing to let go of in order to, receive something, whatever it may be, right?
So that's a good one. Hey, Bob Moneybags, what's up, man?
Hey, Bob Moneybags.
But yeah, I think you're, privacy is the key to everything, and I think that's really that was the point of developing the Bitcoin and the digital asset space to begin with, was to move people into financial privacy. And we've gone, with our social media and everything else through a platform, we've given away our privacy altogether, and then people complain about it, which is kind of funny. So, we use Facebook, we use Twitter, especially Facebook, I think more than anything, because people put their pictures on there, they put their birth date on there, they put all their information on there. And then we worry about the fact that Facebook is mining our data and selling our data. I mean, what do you expect? But, that means that we just shouldn't partake. But at the same time, that that switch over, if we're going to get into a digital asset blockchain environment, it's all about, the privacy or the control of our data. I think that's the most important aspect of it. So if we're driving, and it's up to us whether or not we want to sell it. If we sell our data, then maybe we get it for free. If we don't sell our data, then we have to pay. And so you think about it from a toll perspective or on the road perspective. Why is it that Google and Waze, I mean, obviously we all benefit from using Google and Waze for free. Are they getting any kind of financial reward from using it? I don't know what, there's no real ads that are popping up on Google Maps and Waze, but when you use it I got to believe when you're using Google Maps from a corporate perspective, if you're integrating it, there's got to be a cost involved, right? I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong with that. You give it to the retail consumer. I mean, there's so much. There's really so much that can happen. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. One of my biggest concerns, though, is that we're being overcharged, in our lives today. So you think about, you have your cell phone, you're paying for your cell phone, and then people still have home phones. You have your cable at home, and then you're paying for cable TV, and you were talking about YouTube and having to register for a YouTube account. Then you have your Netflix account. Then you have your Amazon Prime account. And then you have who knows how many accounts. Now Brave is talking about, maybe we should start paying Brave dollars or Coil dollars or whatever it is. We're being overcharged to death, now. So I think as you rein that in, though, and you start saying, you know what, I'm only going to pay for what I want to pay for. And maybe we should start getting some of these rewards back, and that's where, you look at Brave, which is starting to compensate people for looking at ads. If you want to block ads, you're paying for it. If you want to browse without ads, then you get to, or if you browse with ads, then we're going to compensate you. But if you browse without, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, and I liked your idea about, if I could trust Facebook. I mean, the only reason I have a Facebook is I have to figure out what my parents are up to, because they're awesome, right? So they're on their multiples. Because I look at Facebook as like it's really a platform for older people, not me, because I'm not that old yet. I'm getting there, but I'm not that old yet, right? But I look at it and I think like, think about it. Just look at it from a UI perspective. It has not changed in 10 years. It's basically the same crappy platform it always was. And all they've done is a lot of back-end stuff to figure out ways to take your data, package it, and sell it. And if we could trust, the big three, the Google, Apple, and Facebook sort of privacy, they would hold privacy, would be a really interesting idea. But if you brought blockchain to it, right? So blockchain, if you controlled your data, and then you allowed access. In other words, if you had the private keys to your data, right? And you were controlling that, I think blockchain could revolutionize the way your data's way it's held, because it would be out there on the blockchain, but you hold the keys to it, so they really couldn't get at it, right? And that would keep them honest. I don't think there'd be a big push for companies like, Facebook and even Twitter. And I know Rain brought it up here in the chat here about the privacy. About on Facebook, you could target one single person out of billions of people, and Raheem Kassam is somebody that I follow on I've been a follower of hers. He just got shut down. He's getting ready. Every time he's getting ready to speak or do something, they shut him down. And he basically, this is what I love. It doesn't matter if you like the guy, hate him, but he called somebody dumb on Facebook, and then he made the point of, does Facebook actually use Facebook? Do they actually know the kind of discord that's going on with real, people start talking about politics or whatever combative issues they want to talk about? He's like, are they actually looking on there to see what people are talking about? Like, from that perspective, I've seen some heated conversations back and forth on there. And, dumb seems to be like at the very tip of the iceberg compared to some of the stuff that's being said. But I do think that we have to think about our privacy. And you know what? I almost feel like the younger generation, Jeff, is like numb to it, right? They don't even care anymore. They're like, yeah, whatever. I'm all in, because they don't feel like, they don't look at privacy the way maybe we thought about it 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. They don't really look at it that way. as long as they can have their apps, their Snapchat, whatever they have, they're okay. They're all in. They're like, yeah, it's just part of the game, right? I mean, yeah, they don't feel like there is any privacy. So I don't think they're actually, when 5-10 years ago, like my daughter, she doesn't feel like there's any big deal about it because there is no privacy.
Right. Well, they've grown up with it. But we grew up in a different era, where we didn't, expose every aspect of our lives to everybody. You think about how hard it was just to communicate and reach out to somebody. You had to pick up the phone and call them. So now we've invaded our privacy there. So now we're trying to reclaim the privacy. So with everything, there's a tipping point. There's always an ebb and flow of every aspect of life, I think. So politically speaking, there's going to be an ebb and flow. You're going to go super conservative, then there's going to be a pullback to more liberalism. You get too liberal, too left, there's going to be a pullback to the right. Same thing economically, and it's going to be the same thing with this. So I think, and especially from a normalcy perspective. So if kids are growing up with the internet, they're growing up with social media, at some point it's going to blow up too, where they're going to say, you know what, I don't want this. So everybody was in such a rush when it was new, it was different, so everybody wanted to share, and it got out of hand. My biggest one of my real hot buttons, the whole with blockchain and privacy, has to do with our medical data, and I've talked about this before, that medical data by and far is belongs to us individually, and between the government and the doctors and the hospitals, they've taken away our right to our own medical records. And so that's insane to me. So that is one aspect of blockchain technology that can help us recapture our privacy, because that's the core of our privacy are the health records. And so, and then if you take that another, a step further, and there's a lot of different, projects that had gone on before, obviously what we're seeing with Brave and Coil and everything else, and is again giving us control over which data we want to release to these companies, and I think that we're going to start seeing a trend in that direction even more, coming from those that grew up with this technology as well, because they're fed up with it, they're getting sick of it, where they don't want everything all over the place. I gotta believe, you're gonna have a big push from the millennials.
Oh, you're right. And so I was just noticing Anthony Luce in the chat says, I'm 23, but I try to keep all my locations off, my VPN on all the time. But you are right. People my age don't even see if it is an issue, because Anthony Luce is a little bit smarter than the rest of them. Let's put it that way. He's a little bit more dialed in. He invests in cryptocurrencies. He's kind of playing on a different level. And I never like to categorize a whole group of people, because I certainly, I work with a lot of younger coders, and they're brilliant. And you know what? It kind of depends. They're kind of dialed in too. So there's always going to be a segment. It seems like, that's why I always have this conversation about music. It's like they call it pop music, not because it's good, but because it's popular. It doesn't have to necessarily be good to be, the two aren't necessarily intertwined. But that's a whole other subject in itself. And Miyagi says blockchain can help the judicial system as well. And I'll tell you what, you're right. So medical and also, the judicial part of it as well. I mean, really any kind of record keeping. But, Jeff, so I go into my doctor and they hand me the iPad, and then I'm doing my stuff. And, you have all those boxes they get to the whole privacy, the HIPAA conversation where, what can they release? Who can they release it to? And okay, fair enough that they're doing that because it's about compliance, right? But are they really, and sometimes you go into a doctor's office and you go to the reception desk and behind them are all the records jammed together, folders. Anybody can just go in there and just grab them,
Right.
You can go in there and just, I like the fact that they're doing stuff for compliance, but how safe do you really feel? Is it really backed up? Can somebody hack in and grab your records? Without blockchain, and with you being in control, you raise a really good point. How much do we trust whatever system it is? And do you say, hey, who are you using? And I know some of the providers out there that provide some of the software. One of them is actually located right over here in Boca Raton. But, how much do you trust the systems they're using? Where is it being backed up? is in the cloud. Are they using AWS? You have to wonder about. It's just not enough. In other words, if you're not using blockchain, there's always going to be some skepticism in there. Would you sort of agree?
I think I think there's definitely an issue, being hacked or whatever. Also, so people aren't aware of blockchain at this point. But I would believe that and agree with you that I think that when we get into blockchain technology, it's the one technology that has the capability of harnessing our data, and keeping it accessible to us and giving us control over it. I think that's, and when we look at medical record data, for the most part, it's relatively secure, but it is. Many of the doctors' offices are susceptible to hacking because they're not necessarily safe. They don't have IT departments. Many of the hospitals are more aware of IT needs, but I would say that the private practices aren't. But many of them are on cloud-based systems. So the majority of these offices don't use hardware. They won't have patient data residing on a computer somewhere. That's kind of already gone. So they're going to use cloud-based solutions. So and I would say all the cloud-based solutions have to be HIPAA compliant. So they have to meet a very high level of security. And so the companies that they're using are using redundant backups, and they're definitely employing the right techniques and strategies to keep hackers out. But if a hacker wants in, I'm sure they'll find a way in. Whereas on the blockchain, they might not.
So I work for a company that also runs another one of the big. Let me see if I can say this in the right way. Anyway, it's a company that runs software for a government agency, and we have to go through the audits, the SOC 2 audits, all that kind of stuff. And you know what I mean. Thing about it is, I'm not saying that the system's perfect, but I do know that there's a degree, even with any kind of audit, right? I mean, audits are chosen. Like, you pick and choose areas you want to look at, whether it's a financial audit, whether it's a SOC 2 audit, whatever it may be. But there are holes in the system. I'm not saying that they're 100%, but I do feel like if blockchain was involved, that would certainly keep everybody honest. And not that you're trying to do something, but it keeps the bad actors out of it. I think that's where it really sort of, where it comes into play. And to Auburn Rain just asked if I'm streaming tomorrow night. Yes, I am streaming tomorrow night. And as you guys may know, thank you, Jeff, for having me on tonight, man. It's awesome to be your first guest. I think I'm the first guest you've had on.
Yeah.
But it's awesome to be your first guest. And, so Jeff and the HODL Report streams on Monday night and Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. And then again at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings. I stream on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights at 10 p.m. So we fill that 10 o'clock slot across the board. And then, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure what is that for. I know Ali's and Ali G's in Australia. We may have some other folks from, I'm not sure what time that is, Ali. I think, is that the next day, or is that like the next night?
I just thought about that. You know what? I mean, it's like for those guys over in the UK and Ireland, what time is it over there? Is it like 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, it is.
4,
well,
3, 4.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I usually try to publish a table, but I think some Aussie told me that it was wrong. Somebody was saying one of the times was wrong, but I just let out on my phone and I'll spit out all the times, because I try to usually put that with when I'm promoting a show. I'll do that again tomorrow. And if it's wrong, I mean, I have to talk to the app owners, but it's really easy. I try to go from Pacific time, Mountain time, Central time, Eastern time. Then I go over to UK time, and then all the way over until you get to Australia. You can't fit them all in there, but I'm trying to get some of the bigger cities in there. And I'll share that app with you too, Jeff. So maybe if you want to do that. Okay, so it's 3:55 in Ireland right now. It's 12:54 p.m. Wow, Ali G is up late. Thank you for coming in, Ali. I really appreciate that.
That's 12:54 noon. That's almost 1 p.m.
So right, so it's next day. Right on. So
yeah,
I always get those mixed.
That's Brian. Brian is AM over there. Staying up late.
So Brian, man, you are always up late. You are like, I see you frequent in other streams, and I see in my stream often. Yeah, in the morning, man. You are a warrior, man. He's always on. He comes in my stream a lot too. So it's kind of cool. What is this? Legendary. We're on a path to Blade Runner type future bearing some catastrophic events. Well, let's not get too crazy there. Let's not get that. I don't know if the future is that bad, but I mean, there could be some catastrophic events, but let's kind of soften that up a little bit. I mean, Legendary's he's like, boom, coming out, punching right on there. It's like, okay, Jeff,
that's it.
What do you say we end the stream right now?
We gotta go.
Horrible. Catastrophic.
That's it.
I'm out. That's 5 for 5.
Well, it's a good thing I got I've got my bucket of rations, so we're good. I got that upstairs. And my little armory, right? So we're good to go.
You have your armory, right, man? Because you never know what's going to happen.
Especially when the zombies come. That's the biggest concern.
I think about that often, man. I really do. I spend a lot of time thinking about the zombie apocalypse. It could definitely happen. Let's all group hug before we die. It's like we'll just pause. We'll hit the pause button, Allie, then we'll just fly around the world, do the group hug,
right?
And then
unpause
the world catastrophe.
I'd rather go.
The Great Awakening.
I want to bypass the Blade Runner and go straight to the Mad Max. I think that'd be pretty sweet, right?
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. Yeah, that is very cool. Right to the Mad Max. We're not even messing around.
Yeah.
And the original Mad Max.
Right.
Not this remake stuff, which was okay, but I mean, let's face it, it wasn't.
It wasn't the same. Yeah.
It wasn't the same. I like the whole Blade Runner thing. What was the movie that right around circa 2000 something with Tom Cruise, where the ads? He was walking down the city streets and the ads were popping up, holograms catering to. Basically reading him and catering all the ads to him. Everything in the city was catered to where he looked. What was the name of that, guys? You know that in the chat? That was actually one of the movies I felt like really were coming into its own. If you guys remember that Tom Cruise movie, and then he put gloves on. He was able to work this 3D sort of.
Oh yeah.
It was basically they were predicting
the Minority Report.
Minority Report.
That yeah, was,
really. Yeah, and those ads, but at the time it looked so futuristic, right?
Yeah.
But
we're
doing
right
that
there.
now. I mean, it's happening on Google. It's happening in Gmail. You guys love when you hit a site and all of a sudden, I was looking at the glasses today and I was like, stop already. All these glasses and sites, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And everything you go, how about this pair? What about this pair? And then they have this ad and they have all that, and it's just. It gets to be too much. Ed French says, "Behold, a pale horse, a must-read."
Yeah, we'll have to read that. But Dansky said, "Can we moon first before we go to Mad Max?"
You're damn straight we can.
Yeah, let's moon. Let's moon first. Enjoy it a little bit, then go Mad Max and get all crazy. All right.
we go all Mad Max. Yeah. So you know what that's going to look like, Jeff? It's going to moon. Everyone's going to be having fun. You're going to be doing stuff for a week. And then crack.
And yeah, that's it. That's
then catastrophic events occur.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, the sun goes out and we freeze to death,
Right. As long as we don't go to Waterworld, I'm all set.
Yeah, Waterworld. I'm not, there's things I'm willing to do, but drinking your own urine is doesn't seem, especially in a contraption like that, it just didn't seem like it would work,
Right.
I just can't.
Yeah.
It didn't look pure enough for me. That's just my take.
Yeah, what's crazy here? We're coming up on the hour, but just as another note on privacy, I was having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about we were talking about informatics, business analytics, whatever. So we're going into this whole conversation, and then the next day I get this ping on Facebook with a special program out of Harvard focused specifically on what we were talking about.
There you go, man. And I've been hearing a lot of people talking about the same similar occurrence that's been happening. And the other day, my daughter says, "Hey, can I get an Alexa for my room?" I'm like, no. We don't need listening devices. She's like, "But it's so cool. I can put LED lights on my room." And then I could say, "Hey, Alexa." And I said, "You know what I can do? I can say, 'Hey, kid, turn them on,' and they turn on." Yeah. So she's like, that's when you go that's when that dad thing creeps in. They just go from not funny,
Right.
And I'm like, I'm like, how lazy are we that we can't we have to say, hey, and I'm like, look, if you have a phone, which I'm streaming on mine right now. But if you have a phone, I mean, there's a listening device in that. If it's Hey Siri, it's Hey Google, it's whatever. And you know, when I don't know if you remember this, Jeff, but a while ago,
brain, sorry,
a while ago they had this. I think it was they were using in a murder investigation. They were using all of the records from an Alexa because it recorded everything.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So when I heard that, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying that might not be a good application. The one thing I was happy about Apple, you guys know I'm an Apple fan, but when Tim Cook said, hey, if we open up a phone for a terrorist, we got to open it for everybody. We're not willing to do that. We do want to protect the privacy. Now, okay, maybe in that case, fair enough, but I don't know how much they're protecting our privacy. I like to think they are, but I have my doubts. So that could be there also. But hey, Jeff, before we wrap up, and I talk for the next 17 or 18 minutes.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I just want to say thank you for having me on, man. It's really cool. I love your streams. I love the frequent, and I really, for some reason, I don't know if I'm more chilled on Saturday mornings, but I feel like I got a good night's rest, and I like your Saturday morning stream. So guys, that's kind of a cool time. You're waking up. If you really want to catch some good stuff, man, you guys all here for Jeff, but I really do enjoy those Saturday streams too, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Oh, what happened? We lost Chip. Chip just cut out. Oh, there you are. We were back.
All right, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't like cutting out. It's not my thing.
No, this is awesome. The whole stream worked out pretty well. It was like seamless.
Don't be talking crazy.
Oh, now we're at the end, so well, I guess we got to go off with a high note, right? But
we do.
Hey, Alexa,
high note, right on.
Google. Hey, Google.
Hey, Google.
LEG said we just triggered everyone's devices. Oh, my phone, of course. My phone had to get triggered. But
right on.
That's awesome.
Right.
So, hey, I really appreciate you coming on. That was awesome. What does Brian Darcy said here? What did he just say here? Can you clear up one thing for me? Do you have to move your coins off the Nano when you have to update it? Well, the thing is, your coins don't actually reside on the Nano, right? I believe your
keys. Yeah,
it's just a key. That's all it is, right? I don't even know where the coins reside, honestly.
On the blockchain.
Where do they go? So they're just out there someplace, hanging out.
Well, no,
I know they're in the blockchain. Yeah, no, the Nano is just the key. That's all it is. So when you update it, then you update it. But when you have to delete the actual individual key, or I guess those would be individual keys. You have your Bitcoin, your XRP, whatever. So and then you can take them off. You can delete them, add them, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing. We gotta. Custody has to be worked out. We got to figure that out before mass adoption gets here. There has to be a simple solution. I don't know what it is, but we're willing to go the distance on this, on putting stuff on a Nano. But are regular people willing to do that? My brother got a Nano. He owns XRP. He never comes in any of the streams I do. He's like, oh yeah, I was busy. I was busy watching paint dry that night. Sorry. It's always some kind of a thing that he's doing, but he never comes into the streams. And I'm like, man, you missed another stream. He's like, whatever. But anyway, he has his Nano for like 3 weeks now. He still has not set it up because, it's an investment of time and trying to figure it out. And am I doing it the right way? And you're kind of freaked out doing it.
Right. Oh, man, the first time I was terrified. Every time I move it, I still get nervous. But that first time I put everything over to the Nano, I'm like, oh, my God, it's not going to go over there. I screwed it up. What happened to it? And then XRP, it's like, boom, it's there. Bitcoin, I'm like, oh, but 24 hours later, I'm like, where the hell's my Bitcoin?
Yeah, what's great about that is when I hold my breath, you click the button.
Yeah.
It's only 4 to 5 seconds,
right, yeah.
But you're right. Bitcoin, 2 days later. Remember they had that big run up, and it was like 12 hours later, people were still waiting. 20 hours later, people were still waiting. Yeah. No, man. So this is where we say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank people for coming in, and awesome. Thank you, Jeff, for having me on your stream, man. I always have fun when we get together and we talk offline a lot, but thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
That was awesome. I'm glad you came onto the chat tonight. And that was great.
I had my fingers crossed the whole time. I'm like, man, let's get through this. Because I tried to do one of these and it just exploded. It was terrible. It was horrible. It was a catastrophic event, to quote one of our friends in the chat over here. So.
Right. Yeah. So, Awesome, man. You know what? I'm real happy. You know, we had a lot of great people on tonight. Obviously, you know, if I went through to read everybody that was on here, we'd be on here for another 10 minutes. So, but definitely, you know, thanks everybody for taking your time to, you know, spend an hour with us at what time is it now? 11 o'clock. So 10 to 11, wherever you're from. You know, some people it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, that was awesome. You know, I totally appreciate everybody. You know, it's great. So Auburn Rain mentioned that he was thinking about streaming on Friday nights. So, you know, let us know if you're going to start streaming on Friday nights.
Yeah, we started talking. Yeah, Friday nights would be cool, man. That'd be a great slot for you to take.
Yeah, and
Rain and I keep talking to Rain too about we're gonna do something. It's just sometimes the weekends become Familyville for me. It's like, you know, it's like sometimes I have a little bit of time during the week, but you know, I always like to try to put the family, you know, first.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It'd be great if we could even, you know, we talked about getting everybody together like this, you know, mixing it up. You know, it's actually, I was in the beginning, I was all about making the videos, and then once I experienced the live streams, I started getting more enjoyment out of the live streams, you know, interacting with people, and now being able to do it like this and actually having somebody to talk to while you're streaming, it's even a little bit more fun. You know, it kind of adds a little something to it.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, I know we got to stream. I know we're going to have like a lot of us are going to end up being on the Zoo stream coming up. When is that? Because Rain and I were talking earlier. I've sort of, did I hear June? Because I don't know. I thought it was like next week. I don't even know when it is. Was it June?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, and I thought it was like June 2nd, June 3rd. But then at first I thought it was like next week also. And then I saw June 2nd, 3rd. So I just said, let's do it February 22nd of 22.
Yeah, I think some clarity on that. By the way, I want to run
another
idea. I want to run another idea by you too, Jeff, after this. Like, we'll stand for a little bit, but I want to run something else by you to see what your thoughts are. But I want to just say, everybody, thank you. I love you all. Big group hug, as Ali says. I'm group hugging you guys. I love you.
That's great.
Every one of you.
Yeah, and how does Chip end his streams?
That's my take. What's yours? Chip out.